Welcome to Unfuck Your Life and Relationships with Anita Astley, psychotherapist and author, and Ryan Rosmann, recording studio owner and music producer. This is a podcast like no other. Sit forward, listen in, and get ready to get unfucked from the inside out. Unfuck your life! Unfuck your life!
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Unfuck Your Life and Relationships. I'm your host, Anita. I'm here with Ryan, my co-host, and the lovely Amanda, who's helping out in the studio today, who's also married to the lovely Ryan. Anyway, today we are going to unfuck divorce. This could be like, we could go for hours and hours and hours. And I'll tell you, being a couples therapist for about 25 years, divorce is one of the most traumatic things a couple goes through. And I have personal experience with this myself, unfortunately. But this is not going to be about my divorce. I will share some of my experiences, because I have to protect the confidentiality of my partner and, of course, my children. And again, it's not about me, but it gave me a window into the people that I work with and really have strong empathy for what people go through when they go through this process.
Sure.
When I wasn't in that place, and theoretically we can all, say, okay, this, that, and the other thing, even as clinicians, but it is really one of the most traumatic experiences of my life. And, but I also want to say there is happiness after divorce.
Definitely.
When you find your purpose and your meaning. Again, happiness just doesn't happen. It's from finding purpose and meaning in life. And that's, for me, is through relationships. But let's talk about this. So one of the things that I'd like for everyone listening out there is to remember, if you have children and you're going through a divorce, the number one goal is to preserve the other parent's image in your child's eye. Children need both parents in their lives to function well. I mean, if we're talking about, drugs and alcohol issues, that's a different story. Always preserve the image of the other parent. Do not let your hatred or anger or resentment or whatever you feel get in the way of what they need. And I'm talking about also young adult children.
Sure.
It doesn't matter if they're like 20, 25. It's not going to help them if you start bitching and moaning about the other parent. And I will tell, so that's number one thing, everybody, if you're listening out there and you might be going through a divorce or you know somebody who is, because the latest stats, you probably do know somebody, 6 out of 10 marriages will end in divorce. So we all kind of got to know how to unfuck it, because if it doesn't affect you personally because you're the one going through it, you will most likely have somebody in your life that is going to go through it. Unfortunately, it's the reality of today's world.
Yeah.
So again, protect the children. Don't let your ego get in the way, and don't let your feelings for your partner get in the way. That's something we're going to start off with. But I want to also hear, Ryan is also divorced.
I am.
And I want to hear something. I want to hear what your experience was like, because there's so many different angles and parts of divorce. There's the emotional part that you're going to go through. There's the dismantling of the coupleship. If they're children, there's the dismantling of the family. And then there's the other ugly side, the legal aspect, which can totally drain you financially. And then, of course, emotionally, if you're not careful, we can easily get sucked into wanting to fight it out with our partner through money. And then you're like $100,000 into it, and that's so yucky and not so good for you.
No, absolutely. When you're talking about like wanting to win or having those sort of like competitions when you're then now in the legal part of it, I mean, oh my gosh, it couldn't even be. And
I thank you for saying that word, win.
Yeah.
There's no winning in divorce.
Right.
Okay. We acknowledge that there was a failure. There was a failure in the system and the marriage didn't work. Nobody marries with the intent of divorcing. But when it happens, really have to get out of the mindset of winning and losing, because if you get yourself entangled in it legally for months and months and years on end, which people do, it is a lose for both of you. And if you have children in your family, you will lose hundreds and thousands of dollars. And people do that all the time.
Yeah.
They also do it to hang on to the other person. But anyway, before we get into the details,
sure.
Do you want to share your story?
Yeah. So I was married for
about 9 years. I had 2 young kids when it happened, and like all of the other friends, we had 2 that were kind of getting divorced. I think a lot of it was kind of growing and becoming different people.
Yeah.
The problem I think we had more than anything is it was some people they grow apart and it can be amicable, but it was not for us. We were very emotional and very had a lot of anger and resentment and hurt going into the divorce, which was really, really challenging.
How old were your kids?
So at the time would have been 5 and like 2.
Okay.
And so my daughter, who was 5, and I was the exact same age when my parents got divorced too. So I a little bit understood, but she kind of knew that things were happening, but my son, he didn't. But I think, and so it took about 2 years for the whole thing to happen because
it's a long and expensive divorce.
It's just,
I can't even imagine 2 years of legal fees. Okay.
So much. And, it really, and it could have gone on longer, but that legal part, like at one point I was like, I can't keep giving this money to the lawyers. Like at this point, like it's better served, even if I have to pay a little bit more to my ex, that's going to go to the kids. Like this is where it should be. I think there's just so many things that. Yeah,
before we get to that legal part, because I do want to talk about that part. What about the kids? How did you guys handle the kids? Because they're young.
Yeah, so you definitely, some of the things you were saying, I made a few mistakes with, and she did too. Like you can't use your kids as pawns in your divorce. And there was a moment where I was frustrated with. We tried to go to mediation. It wasn't really working. And I'd had a phone call with my ex, and I was pretty upset, and I kind of vented a little bit, and I was just like, why is she being so difficult? And my daughter was really upset about that. She's like, no, but this, my mom is the best and most beautiful and this and that. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is hurting her. Like I can't do this. I can't
make those kinds of comments.
Yeah.
But you self-corrected, which was great. You were able to recognize
thankfully, it happened early. And, my ex I don't think she thought as much about preserving the image, like you were saying, as she should have. And for a while, because she was, hurt like we all are, like when you're going through a divorce.
Everyone gets hurt in divorce.
But I think that there was moments that really put a strain on the relationship with my kids for sure because of that. And still the relationship that her and I have too as co-parents. And I think that that's something that, going through a divorce that people should really think about is you're going to have to be, if you have kids together, until your kids are 18 and still probably later, you're going to have to be interacting with them a lot.
Yeah.
Like they don't just go away. So like that relationship that you're going to have with your ex as a co-parent is really important, especially when you have to start getting into how you're going to be raising your kids, and what you're going to start having to go through is how you're going to handle even the things they're talking about at school or the media they're consuming or any of these things. Like you have to be on the same page with all of that stuff.
You have to be able to communicate with each other and put your feelings towards each other on a bookshelf. I talk about that in the book, Unfuck Your Life and Relationships, on Amazon and Simon & Schuster. I have to give myself a plug. And I'm not embarrassed to do that. But
we should do more of it.
Yeah, we should. So getting back to put it on the emotional bookshelf. And when I talk about the emotional bookshelf, it is literally, imagine a bookshelf, and sometimes we have to put stuff on there that we don't or we shouldn't deal with in the moment at that time. So if you're engaging with your soon-to-be ex-wife or ex-wife, and you're talking, or ex-husband, you're talking about the children, put your feelings or whatever you might have about him or her on the emotional bookshelf and focus on what is needed that is best for the children. The worst divorce, we talk about the financial part, are the ones where children are dragged through the mud.
Absolutely.
Where the parents have no boundaries and they use the children as scapegoats to send messages to the other person, but also start bitching about the other parent. Like you were saying, you did it, but then your daughter actually corrected you.
Yeah.
But you listened to that. A lot of parents who people who are divorcing, they don't listen to it because they let their own emotions override what the kids, and sometimes the kids are much more mature in this process than the parents are because they get all nitty gritty about everything that's going on. So it's now, okay, so you self-corrected.
Sure.
Co-parenting is huge. And you're saying, after they get to 18, but it goes beyond that because, as much as you might not like the other person, you're going to have graduations, you're going to have weddings, you're going to have grandchildren. Right. So you're forever bonded with this person, whether you whether you like it or not. As you were saying, your ex, I'm not going to get you in trouble and say anything that you shared. That's on you. So boundaries are really important to keep in place. So put that stuff on your emotional bookshelf. Have some boundaries between you and the children and how you feel about your partner and the children. That's really important. And if you are lucky enough that you can go through mediation, so there's divorces where it's so ugly, you can't even talk to each other. It's all attorneys talking, and you spend a whole, we're going to get to your part of that because I want to know about that. You spend all this money, but if you can, and some people they're so amicable, they're able to just kind of do it together. I don't advise that you just do that 100% because you should have an attorney to protect you.
You need someone to advocate for you.
Advocate for you. And if you can do that, have a mediator. A mediator is the best way to do it. It is one of the most inexpensive ways to do it.
Yeah.
And when you get into litigation, it becomes very problematic. Not only financially, but it's what money means. And money is a very most of us have an emotional relationship with money. But continue. I kind of hijacked that. But share more. So co-parenting was difficult, even though it is something that we need to do in divorce.
No, absolutely. I think that was the other thing too, is especially when you're going through a divorce, is trying to find the strength within yourself to not get emotional when you're going through some of these negotiations or mediations or anything else. You really have to get into a rational headspace before you can do that. Because as soon as you're emotional, then you want to stick it to them, or you're not going to accept something just like out of spite or whatever it might be, which is really, it's prolonging the situation. It's making it worse for not only your co-parenting relationship, anything else. You're then again spending more money with all of that too. But I think that you have to remember that you have to be the best version of yourself.
Yeah, you do, and divorce brings out probably the worst version of yourself.
Right.
It did for me. I have to be honest.
No,
the ugliest parts of me came out.
That is exactly it, and we can all think about this now.
I wasn't proud of that.
Yeah,
either.
You can think about it now, like in retrospect, like you're like, oh, I can be better. And me personally, I feel like I'm a incredibly different and like much better person since going through a divorce. I mean, it changed so much as a parent, as a partner, as a everything, just as a human. Yeah. But I definitely went through some really dark times.
Did you get a therapist involved?
Yeah. So I did. I went through, I had a therapist before we decided to get divorced. We tried to do some like a temporary, like we filed for divorce. Yeah. We put it on hold, tried to go back to therapy.
Reconciliation.
Yeah. Didn't work. Yeah. Did that. And then I kept with that therapist through that too, with really trying to how to handle some of these situations, because tempers can get really heated. Like it can get really emotional really quick. Like it can feel personal, and you can't let it be personal.
Yeah, and yet it is the most personal thing that you will go through. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I'll tell you, in my experience, I learned very quickly and very soon, thank God, that I'd be venting to my attorney and writing this and writing that. And then I'm like, holy fuck, I got this bill. I'm like, I think my therapist is cheaper. I need to go do this.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's easy to get caught in that moment with your attorney, and you need to stop. For those of you maybe going through this or thinking about it, your attorney is there for legal information. Go and see your therapist for the other stuff, because I'll tell you, they're more prepared to deal with that, and it's half the price.
Right.
Literally, when I saw them, like, oh my God, I vented for an hour, now it's cost me $500.
And they're not going to stop you for the they'll let you go as long as you want. Yeah,
go as you want. So see the therapist and have your attorney only for legal stuff. But that's really hard to do, because you just get pulled into that. And again, dividing up assets, detangling, it's a very emotional process. So you can't help but get emotional. But
Right.
again, we have to stay centered in, okay, what are we doing here? What's the goal here? We are going to get divorced. And, sometimes it's amicable, sometimes it's not. Sometimes one person wants it, sometimes the other one doesn't. Sometimes both people want it. The worst case scenario is when one wants it and the other one doesn't.
Mhm.
And then they play out that dynamic and involve the children and then attorneys and all that kind of stuff. Was it
Yeah.
mutual? Did both of you want to get divorced?
It was, our relationship was bad for a few years.
Yeah.
I feel like if we didn't have kids, we would have split up a while before that
Yeah.
for sure. And I didn't want to get divorced because I didn't want to go through the same, like my kids to go through the same thing. But I was ready to be done.
You know when you're done.
Yeah.
You know.
And I tried, right? Like I tried to go back and do everything I possibly could. And I wanted to make sure that when I was done with this, that I was like, I 100% made the right decision. I gave it every possible chance I could and never have any like what ifs or regrets or anything. And I certainly don't. Like I know
that you did everything
that I could.
Yeah.
And it wasn't as mutual as maybe my ex wants it to say now. And then I don't want to throw another bus, and I certainly don't want to, get into too much. But I think I wanted a little bit more than she did at the time. But pretty much by the time we had gotten to like the meat and like the middle of it, we knew we were done, right?
Yeah, and I want to say, you knew you were done. And I was working with a couple about 2 weeks ago, and then one of them said to me, can I actually be overdone, like overcooked? And I'm like, yeah, you can. Like you actually stay too long. And in that process, there's much harm done.
Yeah.
That they know it's over, but they keep fighting. And there were kids involved in this one. And the kids are traumatized. Something happens and to the kids. And then I remember the woman saying, I should have left a month ago. Because if I had left a month ago, my kids that would have never happened. And my poor kids had to go through this whole shit show. And now I've got to unfuck that. Or if I left a month ago. So it's hard. It's hard to know when it's over because most people don't want it. Well, you don't want to give up because it is a sense of, did I give up?
You don't want to fail.
You don't want to, nobody wants to, but in essence it is. But at the same time, if you overstay, you can actually be causing more harm to yourself. And in particularly kids, if there are kids involved.
No, absolutely.
And sometimes we're just done and that's okay. It's trying to, the hardest part for me was recognizing that we're done and it's over and letting go. Letting go is one of the hardest parts. It's the biggest conflict and heartache we have in all songs and plethora of books written about attachment and separation.
Yeah.
And we're talking about divorce. If this is the love of your life and it didn't work out, it's very traumatizing. And now you have children involved and how to dismantle all of that.
Right.
So getting a therapist involved is, I think, very effective. I help people all the time.
I think therapists are important in all aspects of life.
Divorce in particular.
But divorce, I feel like that should be mandatory. Like you get a lawyer, you get a therapist. Like that's just like what people do.
They should just come together. It's
Exactly.
collaborative law. There is a process called collaborative law.
Why are therapists and lawyers are not in the same building? Like,
well, you're talking about a form of collaborative law that does exist where attorneys and therapists couple up. You guys can Google that.
Really?
Yeah, and attorneys and therapists couple up to help humanize the process and not, help people get through it less traumatically as possible as one can. So collaborative law is a thing and therapists are involved. And I just want to say that it is not something to feel like you have completely failed in life. It happens. It's a reality of today. One of the things that will help you move forward is forgiveness, not only of the other person, but of yourself. Even if you feel you're the one who fucked up, did something, and we all fuck up. We're all, like I have said, we're all imperfect. We're all perfectly imperfect. We all fuck up. And it's when we get caught in the blame game, you did this wrong. When a marriage doesn't work, something went wrong. Nothing is linear. Very few things are linear. there's usually something that happens between the couple that hasn't worked out. It's very easy to finger point and say, it's all your fault because you did this. It's all your fault because you did that. Or you didn't do that. The omission and commission of crimes. The other part that's also difficult is all the noise. Everybody else thinks they know what's going on. And that's what happened to me. I lived in, the suburbs, and I just, wanted to get away from all of that and went to my family. So use support. If you have family, go to them, use them as a support system.
Yeah.
But it's the noise. I want to ask you how you did that. I always say, well, you got to shut out that noise, but it's really hard to do if you have a close circle of friends. Those friends are either going to lean in or they're going to lean out. Divorce also in circles like that, and I did that for my circle of friends, exposes the cracks in other people's marriages. And they think, oh, fuck, if they got divorced, what is the hope for us, right? It becomes a mirror, and it's not contagious. People think it's contagious, so they can withdraw from that couple and think, I'm just not going to go around them anymore because God forbid,
Yeah.
But it becomes more about themselves and not really helping the friends or the couple or whatever.
Yeah, I saw 3 other couples that, like, my ex-wife and I, we all had these sort of couple friends. We all got married around the same time, had kids around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
After us all then got divorced too. I'm not saying we're the reason, but like there is sort of a, you sort of start to think about that or look at that a little bit more. And we also had, we were so entwined with our...
So you're saying it is contagious. Your divorce was contagious.
Maybe it was. Yeah. I don't know.
It wasn't contagious. You're like, it was contagious.
I don't want to say that. Like,
but it's interesting.
I think there can be times where maybe it makes people consider something.
Yeah, so it's funny, but it's not funny. Yeah. It absolutely does. It makes people think like, okay, so we're not the only ones having problems.
Yeah.
We're not the only one that this could be a reality for. That's what it does. And again, Freud loves this because he said, again, it goes back to our own self, our ego. Everything becomes about us. Our friends get divorced. We're like, oh, fuck, what does this mean for me? But that's the human condition. We bring it back to, what does this mean for us in my relationship? It's just a normal human condition that we go through. But so your divorce was contagious.
It unfortunately was a little bit. Now, I think they all sort of did have some issues that we knew about too.
Okay,
like,
Amanda, what are you laughing at? You're snickering over there.
It's such an odd thing. Well, we have a friend going through something right now, so I really hope it's not contagious. But no, it's. But I do. You do.
That's only for
that.
First marriages.
You do. All right, you should wear a T-shirt. Contagious only for first marriages. Okay, go on, share.
I do think that we do make things about ourselves. So we see them going through and we compare, and I go,
Absolutely.
where are we doing better as a couple, or where are we doing similar things?
Mm-hmm.
And it can spur some reflection, which isn't a terrible thing.
No, it's not. So how, without going into detail about your friend, we preserve their privacy. As a friend watching this couple going through this, what do you feel and think that you can do to be most supportive? Because there's alliances, right? There's 2 people involved and you're one person. This is a difficult part. Who do you get in the divorce?
So I don't know her husband very well at all.
Okay.
So it's definitely like I'm
aligned with her.
I'm aligned with her. Yeah. And she's being so graceful about everything. Mm-hmm. And I think as her friend, I want to advocate for her advocate for herself more.
Yes.
And not have any regrets through the process without stoking any fires, right? Like I want her to, where she's like, oh no, this is okay and that's okay. And I'm like, well, are you going to think that? Okay. Are you going to think that a year from now and consider those things and advocate for yourself while not trying to, not to win, right? Like she's not trying to do that, but where is that line?
How do you protect yourself financially? And being of the age that I am and coming from a generation where I stayed home and raised the children, there's a huge disadvantage. And I have to say, thank God for the laws, because they are there for a reason. And I did hear like a lot of misogynistic views about, oh my God, did you take all the money? Did you? And I'm like, wait a minute, what did you? And I was a stay-at-home mom. I raised my kids for 23 years. I'm an educated woman, but I put my education on a bookshelf so I could stay home and raise the children, support my husband's career. Lots of women in my age group did that, and some women still do that. I don't advise that because you get totally fucked, honestly, because somebody looks back and says, what did you do for the last 23 years? And I had to be on the defensive to prove why I wasn't earning for the last 23 years. I'm like, I'm sorry, we had an agreement and I fucking worked 24/7. And now I have to defend what I did because now my kids are all grown up. It's like, what? So I was laid off, but I still am their mom. I still was the primary caregiver and I have to fight. So luckily there are laws in place to protect my rights as a woman, as a mother, because at the end of the day, it became about the money and what I didn't do for the last 23 years, as opposed to what I did do, which is parent and bring up my children. But when it comes to divorce, that somehow gets lost and it can be really ugly and it can be really demoralizing and devaluing as a woman. That's what I want to say. And yeah, at first I'm like, I don't want anything. No, absolutely. Once I was over that, I'm like, fuck, I worked for 23 years. I didn't get paid. I don't have a W-9 for that. But guess what? I raised 2 human beings. Where's the value of that? And maintenance, people say, oh, maintenance, you're taking, no, maintenance is about maintaining a certain lifestyle. And let's be reasonable about that. I wasn't about to gouge and go for everything, but I have a right, I have certain rights to what was accumulated together.
You supported the accumulation of the wealth and all of those things. By staying home and raising the kids gave that person the ability to go work and do all those things.
And the fact that I had to fight for that and say that, and I thought, what the fuck? Like, that's not fair. If I had worked for the last 23 years, I'd be fucking making a lot of money too, but I didn't do that. I'm a mom who stayed home and I didn't get paid for it. And I have a daughter. And I said, never fucking do that. Never give up your career for anyone. And I don't care. People might say, well, no. Because you just don't know what's going to happen in your life. I never married with the intent of divorce, and I never wanted to get divorced. I'm sure my ex-husband didn't want to either, but there we were. But I will tell you something, and I'm sure he feels like, oh my God, I fucked him. But I totally feel like as a woman, I had to be on the defensive to say, but when I was parenting and doing all that, picking fucking lice out of my kid's hair while he's, building his career, nobody said anything that I was, nobody said anything then. But all of a sudden, once my job is done, it's like, oh, what have you been doing since the kids have gone to high school and college? You could have worked. Yeah, I could have, and I was, but I'm not the primary breadwinner. And now I have to explain all of that. So, sorry, there's my issue right there, right?
What you said was amazing and needs to be said.
And so I go back to, there are laws in place for a reason. They wouldn't be there if it was such a fair thing that naturally evolved around people when they separated from each other. And so I've met couples who I've worked with who are, yes, of course, we're divorcing. And of course, she's half of, thank God, all assets or half assets are hers. Half, sorry, not all. And I'm very happy to pay the maintenance because she did raise my children and she was a great mom. Our relationship didn't work out, but she's still a great mom, and she was. Then you have the other side where there's a lot of bitterness and anger towards, well, she doesn't deserve that money. She can go and get a job she's perfectly well and capable of because she has a career and she has an education. But hello, she hasn't used that for the last 23 fucking years. So what do you expect her to do at this point in time after she's raised your children? Now what? I think I just went on a rant. They're my issues. I'm fighting for you ladies out there. But I'm just saying that's been my experience. And I know guys feel, and Ryan, you're sitting here, you're a guy, but I mean, I always hear you talk very respectfully of your ex-wife, and she's the mother of your children. It is not about what happened between the two of you. It is what is going to happen now between you and the children.
Right, for sure. And I feel
put your shit aside.
Yeah, it's I didn't love how she handled a lot of stuff, but she was due a certain amount of money for the things you should put aside, but also it's about being able to take care of the kids. It's about being able to do that.
Yeah.
And I think I have to think about child support is a lot but it's for the children.
Of course.
And I may not like the way our divorce went, and I may not really we're not going to hang out, but she's a good mom, and she's not going on vacations and buying a bunch of shit. The money that I'm giving her and have given her has gone to the betterment of the children. And I think that's what's important. But when going into a second marriage, not to get too much into our stuff, but I knew all that, and also what I can bring to the table. Our prenup was baked in probably a little more skewing towards Amanda than it maybe even needed to. And I did that because I knew I didn't want to, if we were, I hope we don't get divorced. I mean,
no,
but probably not. But if things
let
can
it not
happen,
be contagious to you guys.
Yeah. But if things can happen,
things can happen. You can never predict.
Yeah. I wanted to make sure that there wasn't going to be any sort of contention or those issues. Let's learn from the mistakes, because we all want to move on and get into another relationship,
yes,
right?
We
So
do.
what can you learn after divorce when you're going into your next marriage? It's how can I avoid any of those potential mistakes? And a lot of that, I think, is even if you don't have a significant amount of wealth or whatever, a prenup is a good thing.
Yeah,
and there should not
idea.
be a stigma that it's a negative sort of situation, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I'm learning through the work with the younger generation. My time, prenups were not a normal thing or usual thing.
Sure.
But now the younger couples I work with, or people that I know are getting married, they have a prenup in place. And I'm like, good, because it'll make things fair. All I wanted in my divorce was fairness.
Absolutely.
And for anybody who's going through this in my cohort, you just want to be fair, right? For what you've invested and how you've helped the unit grow as a couple and as a family. And if you have children, to how to help them through whatever process they're going through, it has to be fair.
Right.
But we learn hopefully from the mistakes that we've made in our marriage when we go on to a second marriage, which you guys seem totally happy, but it's not repeating the same mistakes. But in order to do that, we're going to do an episode on this, and there's a chapter on it in my book, Unfuck Your Life and Relationships, on Amazon and Simon & Schuster. I got to plug myself in on not repeating the mistakes of our past.
Sure.
And self-awareness is the first chapter. In order to not do that, we have to have a certain amount of self-awareness. And that happens throughout our lives. It's not like we're just done and we're all self-aware. Thank you. Goodbye.
Right.
No, every experience is just like this divorce has now made me more self-aware of things that it was not just his fault or my fault. We came together and for whatever reason, the last couple of years, it didn't work out too well. I have to own my shit. I can't be responsible for what he wants to own and doesn't want to own. I know that I have to own my shit, and I don't want to repeat the mistakes that I've made in this relationship in my next one.
Absolutely.
Because if I just focus on blaming and externalizing everything that's happened, I'm bound to repeat those mistakes.
Definitely,
I have to own that. It's a relationship. Again, nothing is linear. It's bi-directional. There's this loop that goes around between us, and then I have to own my part of it, and I have to make sure that I don't repeat that.
Yeah, so you got to unfuck yourself first.
Unfuck yourself from the inside out first, and the chapter 1 is self-awareness.
Where can I read about something like that? I mean, is there a book that someone
read? I have no idea. But yeah, it's a very difficult process, and I just want to say, for being a woman who just went through it, who did put her career on the bookshelf for 23 years, literally, I had to, defend myself and why I wasn't having this huge income. But listen, if mothers were paid for staying home and raising kids, I'd be a fucking millionaire.
Absolutely. No,
I'd be having to pay maintenance and child
support. I 100% agree with that. And obviously, being a man, I can't have the same opinion that you do. I mean, I can agree with you, but we're you should be the one talking. And you guys are the ones that we should be really making these the rules, because I feel like it has to be fair.
Well, there's a reason they're there, because somewhere along the way, the legal system realized, wait a minute, women are getting fucked.
Right.
Literally, they raise children and somebody leaves or the marriage doesn't work out and they're left with nothing. That's not fair.
Yeah.
And again, it's going back to, another topic we need to talk about is valuing motherhood. We as a society do not value motherhood. Here we go. Amanda's dancing in the corner. This is a whole nother episode. We do not value what mothers, and I have a brother who's a stay-home dad. We don't value that either because he gets shit on by all the, housewives at the bus stop and the moms at the bus stop.
No way.
What do you do, dude? He's a stay-home dad. He's an amazing father. But again, we've talked about how he doesn't feel valued by other mothers looking at him like you're a stay-home dad.
Sure.
But he's married to an amazing mom who does value him as a stay-home dad. But again, it's not valued. Maybe we need to put an income to it, because it is a 24/7 job.
Yeah. You're talking about...
Mothers should be paid now.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead, Amanda.
Yes. There's a whole book about it. I can't remember the name of it, but really like the calculation of what it would cost to have someone to come in and keep the laundry going and clean the house and to take care of the children. Like if you just
a 24/7 nanny in and of itself.
Let's put that in the divorce calculator when you're at the attorney's office.
That is great, right?
Let's put that in the divorce calculator because that does not exist. That formula doesn't exist.
How doesn't it?
It should. It absolutely should. It absolutely should. So I want to quote, I don't know if you guys know Ben Shapiro. There's lots of stuff I don't like he says.
I do know.
But there's stuff that I love that he says. He says, what happened to us when as a society we empower women and tell them that it's more important to go and do this than raise human beings. We don't value that at all as a society anymore. And that's why women get fucked in divorce and we got to unfuck that shit. And guys, don't get mad at me. I'm not saying that it's all your fault, but what I'm saying is let's make it fair. If you have a partner that stayed home and raised your children, that's a very, one of the most important jobs in the world. We are raising the next generation of human beings. How is anything more important than that? And then I can go on. I'm going to fucking get on a rant on this. Demise of the family. What's going on here? Who's raising the children? If it's not moms or dads, who's raising the children? Then, I'm going to get shit on by people saying, well, are you saying that women should just stay home and raise children? I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is if we start to value parenting and see it as something, hey, it has really a ripple effect because guess what? If you're a fucker as an adult, I'm not saying it was your parents' fault, but who was raising you?
Sure, absolutely.
Who raised you? Don't people say that? Who raised you? Who is your mother? Obviously, it's always the mother's fault. Right? Who was your mother? Like, well, what about the fucking father? Like, where the fuck was he? Like, anybody ask where the father was? No, because he was like... We're getting off topic here, but this is something that's really vital to unfucking when you're going through divorce. Look at each other's roles in a fair manner, and it is not just about the money. We have to get through the process in a humanitarian way, number one. So I'm an advocate for collaborative law, but also get a therapist involved. And I know we can't cover divorce, the whole topic, in one episode. We will do more episodes about this.
Yeah.
But if you're going through it, reach out to your family, your support system, and your friends. Have some self-compassion and focus on yourself being healthy so you can be healthy for your children if there are children involved. And number one, as I said at the beginning, preserve the other parent in the eyes of the children. The children need both parents to be healthy and of sound mind, irrespective of age. Sometimes the older kids have a harder time. Young adults, even adults have my parents are getting divorced. Oh my God, I can't fucking deal with this. They have a harder time with it. So just because they're adults or over 18 doesn't mean that you can have a shit show and say and do whatever the fuck you want because you can't. Let's try to get through it in a humanitarian fashion.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's, and then also just to kind of add one more thing is don't only have people that are going to like be yes people to you. No. Have someone's going to call you on your shit too. And a therapist is important to that, but also like your friends, like they're your family, they may not all have your back, but like have somebody that's going to be like, maybe you're the one that's being a dick right now. I think like we have to have things like to be able to put stuff in perspective and like really like keep us grounded and
and the legal part, I just want to commend you that you were able to go to your ex-wife and say, listen, I don't want to spend another $100,000, whatever it's going to cost, because it'll get there very quickly.
Yeah.
Can we just work this part out and leave our fucking bullshit on the emotional bookshelf and just get this done?
Yeah.
Because we are getting divorced. It's fucking expensive, and it has been. Can we just sort this out? If you can do that, you can save yourself a lot of money and heartache.
A lot, yeah. And my lawyer was floored when I told her that was happening, because like they want that paycheck more than they care about you. Like,
they can feel the fire.
They're not, lawyers aren't bad people, but like they are not emotionally invested like you are in this. Like it's their job.
It's their job is what they do.
Yeah. So, if you feel like you can do it, and because that money that you're going to spend should be going to your kids.
Absolutely. You can divide it by 2 and your kids get it.
Yeah.
Get a good therapist on board, guys. That's key. So you're not bitching to your attorney about it and getting a $5,000-$6,000 bill. And you're like, what the fuck?
Right.
And you're like, shit, I got to unfuck my bank account now. So many things that we talked about in this episode that we are going to build upon. Amanda's sitting over there thinking, yes, motherhood, all of that kind of stuff.
Now you're like, I do like that you gave me that microphone.
Yeah, we were debating whether to. I wasn't debating.
No,
it at
she
all.
was debating whether she wanted to. We both knew it was a great idea.
We love having her input,
yeah,
and she had a lot of insight. But I just want to say it's not. It's one of the most unpleasant, traumatic things to go through. But we can minimize some of that trauma by remaining communicative, if we can, with each other, and behaving as adults and not throwing our children under the bus.
Absolutely.
I have seen that way too many times. And I just want to say life does go on after divorce. Unfucking life after divorce. That's going to be an episode coming up. And then, Ryan is in his second marriage and both of them are looking super happy all the time. Just want to say, guys, I might throw up.
Most of the time.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's imperfectly perfect as it can be. I just want to say imperfectly perfect as it can be.
Don't think you're going to get a second marriage that's going to be all sunshine and rainbows. You're still going to have the same shit. But
we have wounds.
But if you can be better and go into it, not repeat.
Well, if you can be better, and then you can be, and the second time around, I hope you guys, I know I'm totally ready for this, is I know exactly what I need and I know exactly what I want. So there'll be no bullshit. And if whoever I meet, I'm dating, is not compatible, it's done. Let's move on. And dating has been interesting. I'm just saying that. Another episode. We got so many good episodes coming up. Dating in dating at my age.
after divorce. Oh yeah. I mean, it's like, especially when you get out of a long relationship, and then I came into it but when I started dating before I got married the first time, there was no dating apps. There was no any of this stuff the same way it is now. Like everything is different.
Yes, I haven't dated in 32 years. I'm just tell you
not
that.
only that, and then.
But what I will say to people going through this, put the dating on hold. Okay, don't
you
start
don't need
dating.
to rush into anything.
Don't rush into anything. And it's exciting if you get on the apps. I kind of did. I'm like, oh my God, I haven't been out there in so long.
Yeah.
Then you're like, oh fuck, I gotta get off this app. I gotta get out of here. And then you just kind of calm down. You got to work on yourself, self-compassion. Get your shit together before you get into a relationship. After divorce, you just need to learn who you are, because you're not that person that got married at 22, whatever.
Sure.
Self-compassion and reach out to friends. Don't be a hermit and
You don't want to be alone,
friends, family. The support is needed. You'll get through it, and of course, always a good therapist.
Always.
Unfuck your life from the inside out. Unfucking divorce. Talk to you guys next time. So many things to work out. Bye, guys.
Unfuck Your Life and Relationships was recorded at High Five Studio in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Unfuck your life! Unfuck your life!